Hello, and welcome back to my small part of these lands. My name is Hailstone. Today we will be looking at a rather new creature, and unfortunately one that I only had a very short time to study. So if you will, please sit back, relax, and let us begin. I have found myself fascinated with these lands that are charged with a strange energy, and even stranger, almost anomalous objects that dot its landscape, striking a strange duality between two thoughts, with one unable to decide whether these are objects and structures of an ancient civilization or large skeletons of a large and very forgotten species, though those are ponderings for a later time. What has caught my attention today was a beast that pursued me and my group on our way into the Forbidden Lands, the Balahara. The anatomy of the Balahara. The Balahara is a large Leviathan-type wyvern that has largely evolved for life among the dunes of the Windward Plains, sitting roughly at 30 to perhaps 40 feet in length, covered in dark scales that largely cover the back of the wyvern, running down towards the tail before twisting into a corkscrew-like manner, along with the orangish coloration that dominates the belly of the creature up to its jaws. The back of the Balahara is also covered in many raised ridge rows with hardened scales that jut out and forward, almost like that of a claw, which may assist the beast as it digs rapidly through the sand and stone where it otherwise might not. These ridges are also present along the Balahara's four legs, which I believe the beast holds close to its body to complete a near screw-like appearance as it digs under, perhaps to be more streamlined, if that's the best word to be used here. The tail of the Balahara completes its screw-like appearance, in which it is twisted into a drill-like tip that the Balahara will use to both defend itself as an impromptu weapon and to dig into certain terrain to give itself better leverage. Unlike many creatures in the Windward Plains, the Balahara is eyeless, perhaps deemed too fragile along the evolutionary process to dig rapidly underground, though it has adapted to its inherent blindness, opting to use sound and vibrations to interact with the world around it, though in a rather odd way. The jaws and skull of the Balahara are quite interesting to say the least, or I guess it would be better to call it a tri-jaw, as the Balahara's bottom jaw can split open into two different distinct sections. Within the jaw's initial lining are two distinct lines of teeth that I assume are specialized to grip onto prey and hold tight, along with a single line of small teeth that may be for crushing, though I doubt they would be very effective. Both of the bottom jaws seem to adhere to this order, while the top jaw deviates a little from this. The top jaw retains the same two lines of grabbing teeth, along with a dual ridgeline of flat crushing teeth hidden in the roof of its mouth. And between that ridgeline is a rather odd feature, a single dotted line of blue photophores along the flat teeth's ridges, along with a handful of others scattered around. I believe these to be the cause of the bluish glow that can be seen emanating from the mouth of the Balahara. I believe that these photophores are filled with a type of conductive and highly sensitive magnetic material that the Balahara uses to navigate the Windward Plains, due to the local environment containing an almost anomalous amount of refined metals in both solid and sand-like forms. Though, if indeed the Balahara navigates the world with magnetism, I wonder if its senses are potent enough to detect traces of respective metals in blood. Behavior of the Balahara. The Balahara spends most of its time in the eastern Windward Plains, often nestled just beneath the shifting dunes, resting in its baking sun, or mulling about seeming to observe the local area, while letting out a whistle of sorts by completely enclosing their jaws and continuously wiggle their teeth outward by manipulating the gelatinous mass that makes up the jaw muscles. I am unsure as to what this whistling is used for, whether it's used to search for other Balahara, or used in some way to interact with its environment. In the dunes of the Windward Plains, one can often see the Balahara unlock its tri-jaw mouth and plunge its head deep into the sand, slowly sifting through it, perhaps looking for any form of nutritional value, though through this act they often have to emerge and rid itself of excess sand by discharging it from hidden gill-like flaps that run along the Balahara's neck, though they are also capable of enlarging their gelatinous muscles in their mouth and ridding some of the sand through that manner. In relation to the other fauna of the Windward Plains, the Balahara often shows little interest in the smaller herbivores or even carnivores in the area, and barely seems to come into conflict with other fauna, other than the Chatabara, though regarding much of the larger fauna, I currently lack significant notes and observations. The Balahara also seem to occupy a strange network of caves that lay beneath the Windward Plains, often making their layers here, and often dragging down large creatures from the surface, in which a Balahara will wait just below the surface unseen, and as a large enough creature passes over, the Balahara will begin to churn and swim through the sand, causing it to loosen and drag down whatever it manages to catch. Once the Balahara has drugged down an unfortunate target into the dark caves, I have to note this is the only time I have observed the Balahara actively attacking another large creature. It uses the fall into the caves to attempt to break the creature's balance and inflict further injury. As well, in addition to this, during combat, the Balahara will often try to use its height to its advantage, often climbing up many of the pale white outcroppings of the Windward Plains, digging its tail into its surface, and often spitting up a thick black mucus at its prey, with the substance capable of inflicting water blight, a affliction that can quickly dwindle the stamina and endurance of its prey. Though it doesn't seem like it's the intention of the Balahara to immediately kill whatever it manages to drag down. Perhaps the Balahara intends to wait for its prey to succumb to its injuries before it picks the corpse clean, though it is possible that any hostility that the Balahara displays are more aspects of territorial behavior than those of a predator looking to eat. Diet of the Balahara. Speaking of their predatory behavior, as I mentioned earlier, I haven't observed the Balahara eat or even attempt to take down another creature in pursuit of subsistence. And at this point, I'm not entirely convinced that the sandpit traps that the Balahara uses are for hunting. Though if that is the case, what does the Balahara ingest for nutrition then, especially for such a large creature? I would surmise that the easiest answer would be that the Balahara is a opportunistic scavenger of its own making, injuring other creatures within its sand traps, and after pulling them underground, the Balahara will now attack the disoriented creature, fighting it in order to inflict further injury, though it will disengage shortly thereafter, perhaps to track the creature over a prolonged period of time, or perhaps the Balahara was simply looking for an already weakened creature to eat. Though there is another possibility, mostly stemming from another section of the Balahara's behavior, in particular using its jaws to sift through the sandy dunes. It's entirely possible that the Balahara isn't a predator or any form of grazer, so to speak, but is instead more of a territorial scavenger, one that is aggressive towards other large creatures, perhaps in an attempt to keep its nutrient-rich feeding grounds rather safe, as while sifting through the sands, the Balahara can be rather unaware and defenseless to what is going on. I also base this on another common Balahara behavior. In addition to spitting out excess sand that was collected while feeding, the Balahara often tends to spit up an odd number of objects, including bones, rock, and an odd amount of flesh. It's possible that the Balahara may be unable to process large chunks of flesh and other objects and tend to feed more on the minuscule nutrients or creatures that it can find within the sand, though this is only one branch of thought. Final thoughts on the Balahara. At this point, I wish I had more time to study this creature, but I was only here in the plains for a scant few days before receiving a rather grievous wound that has effectively put me out of commission and has incited my departure from the Forbidden Lands. It's to a region that has more medical knowledge and one that is far safer than this frontier, I guess you could say. Though I fully intend on heading back to the Forbidden Lands as soon as I am able. Thank you for watching another one of my videos. I must admit, I'm not overly happy with the presentation and format I chose for this video, but overall it is a test, so I decided to grit my teeth and bear with it. And I do apologize, this is a rather incomplete report on the Balahara, and something I hope to correct when the main game comes out.